G'day, my name is Michael Connell. I'm a comedian, but I also do motivational talks for high school students. I'm here at a high school in Lilydale. It's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I'm about to go do a performance for about 150 high school kids. They're not my fans. They haven't come and seen me. They've just been pulled out of maths class. It is really, really early for a comedian. I hope they're going to laugh.
A fantastic stand-up comedian, tremendous story. Please give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. Great to be here. My name is Michael. I'm a comedian. I know what you're all thinking. You're all thinking, wow, this guy has big lips. I do have big lips. People always ask me how big my lips are. I don't really know. Because like with shoes, you can go, I'm a size 10. Lips, there's no scale. But if there was, I'd be a double D. I am stacked. I'm always talking to girls, I'm like, hey, eyes up here. Stop checking out my goodies. It's making me feel a bit uncomfortable. No, obviously that's stupid, right? I was born with these lips. My whole family has them. Like, I have them, my brother has them, my sister has them. Oh, my sister is all right, because she's a girl. Me and my brother, it's a bit weird. Because I got the face of a man, lips of Angelina Jolie. Body of Gollum. It's an odd combination, right? And I know you're all thinking about the lips because I got picked on all through high school for having these lips. Like, these lips, slightly larger than average. But the amount of teasing I got in high school, it was like I was in Guinness Book of Records or something. I showed up on the first day of school, all the other kids are looking at me. The guy with the arm growing out of his head's like, oh, thank goodness. Oh, I'm not going to be the school weirdo. He's all there like, hey, everyone! Look at this freak! Right here. So I didn't like school. I liked primary school, right? Because I went to primary school out in the country. I went to a very small primary school. To give you an idea how small my primary school was, when I went to primary school, there was 3 kids in my class. Yeah, and you think that would be bad, but that was awesome. My mum would be like, Michael, how you doing in maths? I'd be like, oh, pretty good. I'm in the top 3. Up there. In primary school, I was always the smart kid. In primary school, there's certain roles that have to be filled. There's the fat kid and the stinky kid and the weird kid. Sometimes that's all the same kid. He had it tough. Right. We still had that, but with only 3 kids, we had to share those roles around. They'd be like, Pete, you're the fat kid and the tough kid. Michael, you're the smart kid and the Asian kid. I'll do my best, but I think that's impossible. Right, but I had fun at primary school, and they go, oh, you spent some time at primary school, now it's time for high school. That's like going, oh, you spent some time in the magical faraway tree, now you're going to Iraq. Off you go. I had a very tough time in high school, because I went to a very tough high school. Right, to give you an idea how tough my high school was, you know how every high school has a motto? Like Melbourne Secondary, aiming to be the best. Sydney High, striving for excellence. My school, because they're too young for prison. Kids at my school were just mad for throwing apples. Just like every lunchtime, I'd be waiting in line at the canteen, suddenly, whoosh, just hit in the face with an apple. I've been getting up, looking around for who threw that? One of the tuck shop ladies like, oh yes! Oh, nailed him, I think people threw apples because they're the easiest fruit to throw, aren't they? Like guys at my school, they'd be like, oi, Barry! Barry would be like, huh? And they'd be like, smack! Hit him with an apple. Kind of hard to do that with, like, a banana. Oi, Barry! Huh? Well, this is awkward. See you in maths. But if guys were mad throwing apples at my school, I got hit with so many apples at my school. After a while, I could tell what kind of apple it was from the way it hit me in the face. I'd just be walking around like, whoosh, oh, golden delicious. Some apples were better than others. Like golden delicious, Jonathan's, they're fairly soft. Granny Smith, it's like a juicy cricket ball. They were green, they were hard, they knocked your teeth out. I don't know who Granny Smith was. She hated kids. But it was very, very tough going to school. Probably because not only did I go to a tough school, but back in high school I was kind of a nerd. You're all looking at me like, what do you mean was? And kinda. But it was very tough because, being a nerd is a tough thing, right? Have you all seen that movie X-Men? Or maybe you read the comic book. Yeah, there's all these mutants. They've each got like one superpower. So if they get attacked, it can be like, super strength. Whoa, fireball. Being a nerd's like that, except my power, it's not as good. Like when I get attacked, I'm like, good at Nintendo. Can finish Sudoku. That never helps in a fight. Every superhero has a weakness. Like Superman, when he's fighting, the villains are like, kryptonite. Then he gets all weak and unco. If that was me, the villains would be like, girls. No! Losing nerd powers. Becoming socially awkward. Must finish Sudoku. I got picked on a lot for being a nerd, right? And one day, I'm at the bus stop. This is like first week of year 7, right? I'm at the bus stop, and I'm reading this book. And I hear someone go, "Hey, Einstein!" "Hey, Einstein!" Yeah, because that's what Einstein invented. Reading. Right? So I'm not paying any attention, but this guy goes, "Hey, Einstein!" And then I'm not paying attention, he goes, "Hey, nerd!" Little tip, if you ever hear that, don't look around. It's not going to be something nice. No one ever goes, "Hey, nerd, have some chocolate cake." "Hey, nerd, here's some ice cream." Right, but this guy's going, "Oi, nerd, I've looked around." And this guy, other side of the bus stop, he's gone like this. I go, "Oh, great. He's going to throw an apple at me." But he didn't. He threw a rock. Right. Yeah. Now, I've seen this rock coming for me, and I'm not quick enough to dodge it or anything, but I am holding this book. So what I did was I blocked it with my face. Afterwards, I was getting up like, "Oh yeah, the book. Of course." And this guy is hitting me with the rock, just going, "Nerd!" High-fived one of the tuck shop ladies and got on his bus, right? Now that guy's name, I learned later, that guy's name was Steve Mealmaker. And Steve, right, because it was the country, Steve was a massive hillbilly. He came to school one time with the head of a pig. Yeah, he'd gone hunting, cut the pig's head off, brought it on in. We've all seen it, we go, "Whoa, you're either the biggest hillbilly freak, or your mum makes the worst lunches." Not swapping with you. Very racist, Steve, very racist, and he'd always pick on my friend Warren. That's because Warren, out of the whole school, Warren was like one of only 2 Asian kids. The other one was me. So, very hard, right? And Steve, I didn't know why, because up till then, I'd never even talked to Steve, right? I didn't know why he threw this rock at me. What it was, why he did that, is because at my school, everyone was playing school like it was a game. It was like there was this big ladder. Up the top, there's all the cool kids. Down the bottom, there's me. Yeah. And you moved up and down the ladder depending on what other people thought of you. So if you had some cool jeans and someone was like, "Hey, nice jeans." Ba-ching, level up. But you could also go down a level. If you made a mistake, you're in class, you got to ask the teacher a question, but you're like, "Mum." Oh. Then you go down a step. Unless the teacher is your mum. And she's like, "Yes, sweetie." Then you go down a lot of steps. That's pretty embarrassing. Right? But this is why Steve threw the rock at me, right? Because one way of going up the ladder is to push other people down. Right? That's why Steve threw the rock. And that's why in high school I got picked on for the stupidest stuff ever. That's why I got picked on for my lips. I got picked on because I had braces. When I got the braces, the dad was like, "Oh, you can have any coloured braces you want. You can have blue ones, you can have green ones. You can even have glow-in-the-dark braces." Glow-in-the-dark? I thought, why would I ever want glow-in-the-dark braces? I've never woken up in the middle of the night going, "Where are my teeth?" There, in my face. Still. So I got picked on for that. I got picked on for my name. Right? My name's not that weird. My first name's Michael. But my middle name's Renee. Yeah, hilarious. Ooh, Renee. Oh, all right. My Renee, though, is spelled R-E-N-E with an accent over the E. It's just like the girl's name, except they cut out the A. And that's supposed to make it a man's name. Yeah. I mean, you can take the lace off a bra, doesn't make it menswear. But it's R-E-N-E with accent over the E. That's the male Renee. So you have Patricia, Patrick, Stephanie, Stephen, Renee. There's no other names like this. There's no guys getting around like, "G'day, I'm Susan." Accent on the U. It's the male Susan. But yeah, I got picked on for all sorts of stupid stuff all through high school. Probably the number one thing was being a nerd, right? And, you know, every time Steve would see me, he'd just see me in walking around and be like, "Nerd! Nerd!" Like, not so much an insult, just pointing out the obvious. Nerd! Sky! Floor! That's great, man. He'd pick on me for stuff like that. He comes up to me one time and he goes, "Michael, you're such a nerd. You're such a nerd. I bet you're such a nerd. I bet when you're at home, you probably eat with a fork." Now that is stupid. Like, since when has eating with a fork meant you're a nerd? Right, I've never been in a restaurant eating with a fork. There's some dude over here scooping up spaghetti in his hands. Nerd! But at the time when Steve said that, I didn't think, Steve's an idiot. I thought, I do that. I am a freak. Right, because when you're in high school, it's hard to tell. Sometimes in high school, you know, you think you're weird, but actually it's high school that's weird. You know, like, because I'd come to school and people would be like, Michael's got big lips. Steve would come to school with a pig's head and people would be like, Michael's got big lips. So I thought I was the weirdo. Right? I always, all the time, getting picked on for being a nerd, being a freak. And like, can I just say, being a nerd, that's got to be the dumbest insult. Right? Because like, when you insult someone, you're kind of suggesting you're the opposite of whatever you call them. You know? Like, if you call someone ugly, you're suggesting you're attractive. Because if you said you were the same, that wouldn't be an insult, would it? You know, like, you're like, "Hey, you're hideously ugly. Like me. Let's start a club." You know, that's not an insult. Right? And what's a nerd? A nerd is a smart person. Right? What that means is, when I was standing around at the bus stop, guys would come past on the bus going, "You're a nerd." What they really meant was, "No, I'm an idiot." I'd be like, "I know." Even though I was a nerd, though, I didn't do very well at school, right? Because I'm a nerd because I read a lot of books, a lot of Lord of the Rings. You know, I don't have... But people assume when you're a nerd, they assume you're going to know useful stuff. You know, they're always like, "Michael, you're a nerd. Can you help me fix my computer?" No, I can't. I can fix your Hobbit. Is that a problem you're having? Because I'm all over that. I also got picked on for being a nerd, not because I was really smart, just because I was smarter than Steve. You know, in high school, people weren't going, "Get him, he's studying quantum physics." They're a bit more, "Get him, he's eating with a fork. What black magic is this?" Right. So I did terrible all through high school. Up to about year 10, very bad, right? Like, our school had this thing called Student of the Week. I don't know if you have it here. No, like, if you do something good, they'd take your photo and they'd hang it up in the hall. Then everyone else would see your photo and call you Geek of the Week. And they'd have the photo up there, it'd be like a photo, and it'd be underneath it, have like, "Barry is Student of the Week." Should have been like, "Barry, getting bashed this week." But I never won it because I was terrible at everything. You know, like Japanese. I studied Japanese for 6 years. I learnt one phrase, "Wakarimasen." That means, "I don't understand." The only other thing I remember from Japanese is they taught us, you know that song, "One little, two little, three little Indians"? They taught us that in Japanese. "Hitori futari san in India." Very hard to work that. into a conversation. Like, when is that going to come in handy? I'm going to be walking around the streets of Tokyo. Oh, mite, takusan Indian gaimasu. Oh, look, lots of Indians. And whoever I'm with would be like, oh, none in Indian gaimasu ka. How many Indians are there? And I could be like, ja. Well, hitori futari san. I can only get to 10 Indians and I have no idea. It's useless. I also learned a bit of German, just because my friend who went to Germany on like an exchange program brought back all these German video games. Just like regular video games, set a bit different. You know, because they were all in German. You know, instead of having Mario coming out, it's me, Mario. You know, it was all in German, you know, ik ben Mario. We'll play one game, you know. Settle down, Mario. But for playing these games, I did learn all these useful German expressions, right? So if I meet someone on the train, I can be like, guten Tag, good day. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Do you speak German? Ach, ein Panzerfaust haben. Ah, you have a bazooka. I use it all the time. I never really saw the point of learning that. I didn't like science either, because I didn't see the point of science. We're always doing that experiment, you know, you get a coin, you put it in a glass full of Coke, and the Coke kind of dissolves the coin. You know, the science teacher would be there going, oh, Michael, what have you learned? I'm like, I just put my money in a bank instead of a jar full of Coke. Is this what you're trying to teach me? I like drama and music. You know, I like the creators. I hated maths because, you know, there's no room for imagination in maths, is there? You know, every day they'd be like, in maths they'd be like, Michael, you said 6 times 6 equals 74. How'd you get that answer? I'd be like, I used my imagination. You can too. Come on, let's ride on my unicorn. Away. I didn't really like history, but I did like my history teacher, because for history we had this guy called Mr. Batley. Right? Mr. Batley was just mad passionate about history. Right? He had this big hobo beard, and he'd come into class, he's all ranting and raving about, you know, ancient Egyptians and ancient Romans and guys with ADD would be walking out of his class like, that dude's nuts. I'm exhausted. Like I said, my favourite subject were probably music and drama. I liked music because I play the harmonica. I'd like to start off with playing you a song I wrote myself. This is a song I wrote back in high school. This song is called The Day After the Rock Concert. What? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll be selling CDs after the show. There's always someone who hasn't been to a rock concert. Why is that funny? I don't know. Like, it was very hard playing the harmonica during high school, right? Because the harmonica, like, is a small instrument. When people say it's a small instrument, they assume it's an easy instrument to play. Like, you tell people you play the harmonica, instantly everyone gets patronising. You know, they're like, ooh, you play the harmonica. That's great. Oh, and you've dressed yourself. Well done. Very tough to play the harmonica, right? Especially in high school, you know, because one hand you have to hold the harmonica, the other hand you got to stop people beating you up. That's why it's so hard. Ladies and gentlemen, for my final song on the harmonica, I'm going to play you my favourite song. It's my all-time favourite song on the harmonica. You go, Michael, that is a terrible song. It's annoying and boring and repetitive. Yes. But if I get on the train, start doing a bit of this, get a carriage for myself. Or punched in the face. Can't go either way. Yeah, so I liked music. Like I said, I also liked drama. I liked drama, but I didn't like my drama teacher. Because for drama, we had a teacher called Mrs. Wells, right? And Mrs. Wells was nuts, right? She always thought I was my friend Jamie, right? I don't know why, right? I'm all tall, blonde, nerdy. Jamie's short, chubby girl. I think she could tell, right? Mrs. Wells taught drama, but she also taught a lot of other subjects. Not because she was qualified, she just did. I think sometimes our principal would get phone calls like, oh no, our geography teacher just quit. Mrs. Wells, you're good at acting. Want to pretend to be a geography teacher? She's like, the show must go on. She'd do it. She'd go and teach that class. For me, worst subject would have had to be sport, right? Because for me, being a nerd, sport, that's the most dangerous subject. You know, like a teacher sees someone beating you up in maths, he's like, hey, stop that. You know, teacher sees someone beating you up in sport, he's like, hey, nice tackle. Good job. I'm like, we're playing volleyball here. What are we doing? At my school, right, I don't know if you do this, but at my school they made you, every semester, they made you pick a sport to play. That's like choose your own torture. I go down there, they're like, right, we got cricket, footy or swimming. I'm like, okay, great. So I can be beaten, kicked or drowned. Thanks for the option. But one day I go down there and I'm looking through the list, right? And I'd never pick you never pick baseball. Because that'd be like 6 months of people hitting you in the arm with a baseball bat. Oh, you've broken my arm. You always try to pick wimpy sports like, badminton. All they've got is that feather dustery shuttlecock thing. Someone starts hitting you with that, you're like, oh no, you've removed my lint. It's not that bad. Well, one day, I'm going down there, I'm looking at the list for sports, and I see it. The perfect sport. Power walking. Yeah, a bit of... And you're thinking, Michael, that is stupid. When would you ever use that? But see now, if I ever get mugged, some guy's like, give us your money. I can be like, I better get out of here. And I'll be fine. If he can't jog, right? No, it is a stupid sport. Like just the name. Power walking. Like extreme knitting. Think of something boring and exciting. That doesn't make it a sport. Ultimate laundry. It's not going to catch on. But every week, right, because I was doing power walking, every week they'd cram us onto this bus, they'd take us down to the local park, and then we had to walk around the lake, right? You had to go around it was a very dodgy area, a lot of crime, a lot of muggers, You get around the lake the first time, and they'd take your pulse, and then you had to go around again, right? The idea was you walk around the first time, you have to increase your heart rate, right? I got around the first time, they'd go, oh, that's very good, Michael. You've really got your heart pumping. I'd be like, some guy tried to mug me. He could jog. They're like, that's great, go around again. It was horrible, it was middle of winter, freezing cold. We're all there in like t-shirt and shorts. Luckily all around the park there was all these houses. Yeah? Houses with clotheslines. Guys that set off in t-shirt and shorts, come back with a jacket and a TV. It was like the crime excursion. It was great. One day I get back from walking around this lake and they go, Michael Connell to the principal's office. I go up there and they go, Michael, you've won Student of the Week for oceanography. Are you surprised? I was surprised. I didn't do oceanography. Jamie did oceanography. But I wanted that prize, so I'm like, yeah, that's totally me, right? And they sent down the photographer and he's like, oh, should we take the photo like this or should we take it like this? I'm like thinking any second they're gonna realise. He's like, should we take it like this? I'm like, hurry up and take the photo. And when I went, he took the photo. So my photo's up there in the hall. Everyone's there, geek of the week. I couldn't hack it. So I told them, they told other people. Soon, whole school is laughing at Mrs. Wells. Mrs. Wells hated to be laughed at. She comes up to me in the hall and goes, oh, I didn't make a mistake. I know exactly who you are. And guess what? I'm giving you detention, Gary. Like nuts, you've got me. Right, so but that's what my high school was like, right? That's where I was about year 10, right? Not paying attention, not doing well at school. I didn't do well at school because I wasn't interested in school, right? Because all my life there's only ever been one thing I've really ever been interested in, and that's making people laugh. You know, like even back in primary school, you know, we'd have show and tell, and the teacher would be like, you know, what did you do on the weekend? And I'd think, well, I could tell the truth, or I could make up a story, that'd be more interesting. And when I did that, and people started laughing, it was like, bam, that's it. That's what I want to be. A liar. No, I didn't think comedian because I'd never seen stand-up, right? Like, up till then, I'd grow up in the country, I'd never seen stand-up. But then, in about year 10, my mum took me to see a comedy show. And I always read, you know, interviews with musicians, and they talk about the first time they heard a guitar. You know, it was like click, destiny. That's what they wanted to be. It's kind of like that for me. You know, we went to see this comedian. He did this joke about eating Wheat Bix out of his underpants. My mum was there going, oh, that's gross. I'm like, no, that's destiny. That's what I want to do. But from there, right, I got inspired to be a comedian. I started performing around town, doing comedy shows in pubs and clubs and comedy festivals. And from doing that, I learned two things about high school. Firstly, I learned there's a big part of high school that's very important. And that's all the stuff, you know, about getting an education. You know, I realized that if I wanted to make a living as a comedian, the stuff I'm learning in high school will help me do that. For example, you know, I realized that if I wanted to write comedy routines, that's English. You know, if I do a tax return, that's maths. If I'm ever late for a gig, I could be like, oh, power walk. But all the stuff I learned in high school has helped me build a career as a comedian. And I wish I learned that earlier, because I'm still learning stuff now that I wish I should have learned back in high school. Like now I know that if I do a show and I sell 6 tickets at $6 a ticket, that's not $74. Even if I used my imagination. You know, I'm giving the money to the guy at the bank. He's like, this isn't $74. I'm like, shh, just pretend. I'll give you my unicorn. Second thing I learned is there's a big part of high school that's not important. You know, all this ladder stuff, playing it like a game, you know, all this stuff with Steve, not important. You know, working in the real world was a revelation to me. You know, because in the real world, people value intelligence, they appreciate hard work, they eat with forks. All this stuff with Steve, it didn't matter. Like, I'd been doing comedy for about 6 months. I got very lucky. I got to do like 30 seconds on public TV, right? I come to school the next day and Steve was there like, nerd! Man, I saw you on TV last night. Mate, you're a loser. I'm like, I'm a loser? Man, I haven't seen you on TV. He's like, hey, Crime Stoppers. I stand corrected. Right. But all that stuff with Steve, you know, being a nerd, being Renee, having weird lips, doesn't matter. In fact, I've built a comedy career on it. You know, it's helped me out in the long run. And all that stuff doesn't, once high school ends, does not matter. You know, like every now and again I meet up with people I went to high school with. You know, like the other week I went to my high school reunion. Well, kinda. I went to Centrelink. And that's not true. It was my actual high school reunion, right? And of course, Steve was there. I got chatting to Steve, you know, I'm talking to him, you know, and he was cool. Because, you know, he's not playing this ladder game anymore. He's not putting me down to make himself big. You know, we got along fine. And I talked to him and I said, you know, what do you do for a living? He goes, oh, I'm a teacher. I'm like, really? What kind of teacher? He goes, I'm a maths teacher. And I was just like, no! Thank you guys. That's been my time. You've been fantastic. Woo! Thank you very much. Yeah.
It was a good show and I really enjoyed it.
It was so funny and math is good.
It was pretty educational, very funny.
I thought it was excellent.
It was a great show. I enjoyed it.
I thought it was really good, very educational and really funny.
I want to see it again. It was absolutely freaking funny.
G'day, my name's Steve Palmer, Year 11 Coordinator at Mount Lilydale Mercy College. Michael Connell performed for my Year 11s and they found it a wonderful show.